Everyone. So, before we begin this podcast with Trace, I want to share a few things about the Vietnamese Association of Illinois, otherwise known as VAI, and how they are in partnership with the Saigon Jazz Revival. And so, with the Saigon Jazz Revival and VAI, we hope that this event will bring attention to the growing needs and changes in our Vietnamese American community and celebrating 50 years as an organization while celebrating the legacy and culture of the Vietnamese American community and how it continues to evolve over time. For VAI's mission statement, it's about building a more equitable and inclusive society by meeting the challenging needs of the Vietnamese American and broader community, honoring our cultural heritage, and building community alongside other communities of color. I've been a proud member of the board for VAI for 2 years now, and this is an organization that helped my mom obtain her citizenship, where I got my annual physical shots, and where my mom would find a community of folks to socialize with in her later life. So today, the Southeast Asian nonprofits across the US are slowly disappearing with the changing demographics and landscape of the Vietnamese community. In the Asia and Argyle neighborhood, there are many changes happening to the Southeast Asian communities, and as there have been gentrification happening, but also many of the community members moving into the suburbs, into different parts of Illinois. And despite it all, the Vietnamese Association of Illinois continues to build on the legacy that our elders have built and continues to seek out the future generations of Vietnamese Americans in Illinois. So I hope that you get to listen to this interview with Trace and learn about the Saigon Jazz Revival and why we are so excited to bring them to this event. The Saigon Jazz Revival will be held at Live Bash on Saturday, August 29th from 6 to 9 p.m. Tickets are available. If you follow VAI underscore Chicago on Instagram, you can purchase your tickets from there. So, all for a great cause, but also a great way to celebrate our culture. Thank you. Hey everyone, so welcome to the Banh Chronicles podcast, and I am joined by a returning guest. And it's been a long time since I've had her on. So I want to introduce you to Trace. And Trace is a second generation Vietnamese American artist and writer who has spent the last decade in Los Angeles immersed in the music industry. Since 2016, resonating with themes of longing, belonging, and queerness, her music has reached over 84 streams, including major label releases and a partnership with NAMI to spotlight mental health. Her love for storytelling naturally evolved into filmmaking, showcased by her semi-autobiographical debut short film, No More Sad Songs, which premiered in the fall of 2024. Trace's second short, Crybaby, premiered this past August in anticipation of its 2026 festival circuit run. In the meantime, she's developing a documentary about her mother and in tandem writing her debut semi-autobiographical memoir. So welcome back to the show. It's been nearly 6 years since you've been on as a guest, and obviously so many things have happened to you since our last conversation. At that time, I know you were very focused on your music career, and you also recently got married to your partner this year. So congratulations, and how are you feeling this year?
Thanks. Thanks for having me. I cannot believe when you said 6 years, I was like, that's before COVID.
It was actually after COVID.
Was
Yeah, it
it
was after.
after?
Yes, it
Oh
was
my
after
gosh, I
COVID.
can't
Yeah.
even calculate the time. It's 2026, everyone. 6 years after COVID. But yeah, I've been good. Thank you for the congratulations. I got married like 7 weeks ago. No one's counting. 7 weeks ago today, depending on when this airs.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been a very good 6 years of learning how to be my most self.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know?
I think it's kind of the word of Ocean Vuong, time is a mother, and I
Yep.
just feel like it's been very disorienting.
Hmm.
And, you and your mom, Carol Kim, are coming to Chicago on Saturday, August 29th, to take part in the Saigon Jazz Revival, and this will center around her as as an icon, as someone who has been performing for decades. And
Hmm.
and the Saigon Jazz Revival is in partnership with the Vietnamese Association of Illinois, VAI, which I currently serve on the board for. So, how are you feeling about coming to Chicago? Or what do you know about Chicago in terms of the music scene, or what you've maybe perhaps understood about the culture of Chicago so far?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Chicago once, and that
Mm-hmm.
was when I was on tour. Um, well, I don't know, 2017 maybe.
Mm.
And that was a fun, oh my gosh. I'm gonna say the venue, and it's not even the venue. Is the Lincoln, something Lincoln in
Ugh.
Chicago.
I
I
think the
want
Lincoln
to,
Hall. Is it Lincoln
yeah,
Hall?
yeah, it's Lincoln
Wow, that's a
Hall.
beautiful venue.
Yeah, so it was very beautiful. That was the only time I've been there. I think like maybe another time, but I don't know anything about Chicago. I am excited to go to Chicago because I like food. The music scene, I'm very curious to see.
Mm,
This is the second jazz revival show my mom's doing. The first one was in New Orleans
mm,
last November, and that was the first time we kind of tried this with Marion,
mm,
who we probably will, talk about in a second. But
mm.
yeah, Chicago, I don't know much about it. I didn't even know you were on the board. And so I loved seeing that you were because I was like, oh, yeah, a friendly face because I don't know much about, yeah, what's happening over there.
Yeah, and I'm also very curious about your mom's understanding of Chicago too,
Hmm.
because obviously, there's a Vietnamese community, maybe not as on the size of Houston or Orange County
Hmm.
um or the coastal cities, but what is her understanding so far about maybe in anticipation for the Chicago stop?
Well, first off, she was her first city. Oh, I'm gonna mess this up, and I'm definitely doing a documentary on her. The first like city that she came to in America, like from Vietnam, I want to say was DeKalb,
Oh,
Illinois.
okay. That's like in Northern Illinois University, which is like,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. Yeah, so that will be something interesting for her, I think. I really can't imagine how she feels about revisiting this area, but I do know she's excited to go to Chicago. I think she's always excited to go and sing and perform. I think she's very hesitant or like maybe I would say nervous, don't tell her I told you, about who's going to show up to these shows because she's very like, if I'm not in Orange County or like where there's a lot of Vietnamese people, which I'm sure you'll give me more education on that, she feels like who would want to see me sing? And I'm like, girl, people want to see you sing. Like in New Orleans, it was like a shock to her to see like people who are not Vietnamese come to her show. So I
Mm,
think she's very excited. I know that because she loves to sing and I think she likes to do this type of show. She doesn't do this type of show very often, which is like a full band, with
mm,
like a jazz, like a full band. You'll experience it and you'll see it. It's just
mm.
really wonderful and magical. So I know she's excited. But I don't know how she feels, emotionally about it.
Yeah, and I will say, like, the Vietnamese community, like where VAI is located, is on the Asia on Argyle. So this is where a lot of the Southeast Asian refugee folks came
Mm,
into that particular block. It's a small block, and
hmm.
it's a neighborhood that's been changing because of gentrification and also with uh, Vietnamese families moving out into the suburbs, like way out into the suburbs. And
Hmm.
I think this is very common among like different Asian immigrant communities
Yeah.
over the years where you're in a part of the city, and then once you obtain some level of financial wealth or stability, then you move to the suburbs.
Hmm.
And I think that this is what I think is so important because, like, I think that we are um at a moment where like our parents' generation are aging. This is like
Hmm.
the survivors, the adult survivors of the
Yeah.
Vietnam War. And it's something that I think about is like what do we do to become stewards of their legacy, their history, and
Yeah.
what does that mean to you as you're working on your mom's legacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big part of it because I met Marion, who had started the Saigon Jazz Revival. I met her at a film festival. We both, she's a filmmaker, and then I am a new one, and we got to meet and connect, and just really hit it off. And so she kind of chatted to me about this idea, and I just felt very, I think like legacy is interesting because as an Asian kid, you want to make your parents proud. I also am learning too that I can't do everything and I can't force anything that isn't mine to do. And so I think legacy is heavy on me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I've been doing so many creative things in my career life because I don't know how else to hold things. So I tell
Mm-hmm.
stories, right, through music and now through film. So in terms of like currently, like legacy, how am I like kind of how does that impact me or how am I holding that? I think it is being able to make this trip to Chicago happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with her. I take her. I book the Airbnb. I'm her
Wow.
little manager because it's very foreign to her doing something like this that's more
Mm-hmm.
like, me or like American.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think on a very like technical level, I think opportunities like this, I'm really glad that I can be a part of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start this thing, but I'm collaborating and can help my mom do the things she wants to do, which is like sing her little heart out.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one piece of just like how legacy impacts me of just seeing like our parents are getting older. So how do I, seize the moment and make sure my mom gets to sing until she can't? She's
Mm-hmm.
talked about it a lot recently of just like wanting to sing forever until she can't. And
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of like, okay, interesting. Like parents do get old, and as
Mm-hmm.
much as she looks and is quite vibrant and like just
Mm-hmm.
the youngest spirit, life is precious, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful that she's here and healthy. And so I think this show will be a big blessing to her and for me too, to let her just do what she does best, which is sing.
Yeah, and actually, I was bringing up your mom to my mom, and it's like, oh, do
Hmm.
you know Carol? I'm trying to convince her to go, but she hates the idea of staying out late,
Sure, me
because
too.
yeah, and I'm that same way
Yeah.
too. And so yeah, she's like, yeah, I do know Carol Kim's like, yeah, she has been performing forever, and then she did not think that younger people would know her, and I think that it's very interesting because for us millennials, we think of Linda Changdai. I mean, I know you're very familiar with the Paris by Night circuit for, because of your mom's involvement, but like we think of some of the more people in their 50s, and Carol Kim's like from a different generation, from like the Kun Lee generation, that era too. And what does it mean to try to educate like our peers, our Vietnamese peers, about her music and her impact in the diaspora and back in the homeland?
I think it is just hoping that people have curiosity of where they came
Mhm.
from. I don't know. That's a very hard question.
Yeah.
I think creating music and creating film and TV with Vietnamese characters in general, I think stirs Vietnamese people with like their own history. I know
Hmm.
it did for me because I didn't grow up seeing too many Vietnamese people singing like America, like pop stars or big actors, like Hollywood actors and stuff. So I think being curious of just your Vietnamese culture, I think that comes from wanting to perhaps understand yourself more. So how do we educate people? I mean, outside of like making something really cool that everyone wants to watch,
Hmm.
that that's that's probably like the best start, with New Wave, like that really kickstarted so many people our age and younger, and maybe older too, to look into their background. And Elizabeth, I did such a
Hmm.
great job at creating a community around that because everyone was like, oh, there's so much more of me than I thought around here, like
Hmm.
in this city. Like there's Vietnamese people everywhere. I'm still learning where Vietnamese people are in the US.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think educating people is essentially done through creativity and storytelling and making it feel personal and honest and interesting. But
Hmm.
it doesn't work if no one's curious about where they came from. And I would say I wasn't
Hmm.
always curious about where I came from.
Hmm. And for Carol, I'm curious about how the collaboration with the New Orleans Ensemble came about, and especially like in trying to pair up with different musicians from different backgrounds
Hmm.
in the jazz genre, which is a Black genre, and like,
Hmm.
for a lot of the Vietnam War era or the Cambodian, like what I've learned is that like during that time, a lot of American soldiers would play a lot of rock and roll music and
Hmm.
different kinds of genres that were influencing a lot of the younger adults in Vietnam. And I think of the Cambodian rock scene back in the 60s
Hmm.
and 70s, and how Santana is like a big staple in our community.
Hmm.
I'm curious about like where or how were you able to, or how we are able to pinpoint like the kind of collaborations and in a way that works for Carol and also for the musicians.
Yeah, it was an experience for sure. I recorded most of these things, so it'll be, visually told in some form of a documentary someday, I hope. But it was a very hard and interesting process to, you know, get my mom on board to do something that she's never done before in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I remember correctly, talking to Marion, she worked with all the musicians in New Orleans because she lives there. And she was just kind of telling me like who she's brought on. They're the best of the best, and they really are the best of the best in New Orleans. They're amazing musicians. And it was me just being like, Mom, these are people who are professional. They're
Mm-hmm.
great. You can trust them. And she's like, okay. And we had a FaceTime call with everybody. And my mom had such a fun time talking to the band leader, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And he was amazing. He is amazing. And I think the more she spoke about just where she came from and like her love of like jazz music, I think that that was enough to kind of build the trust to know that this process is going to be different. So that was like the emotional like connection first of like, do you trust this band? Do they even know who I am? Can they do what I do? And my mom, I think my mom will never show nerves, but I think she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to let people down. So she's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, well, what do you guys expect from me? And we're like, well, it's a it's not it's a chill show, but it was being recorded and everything. So, but it's a big show, Mom, and we're gonna sing songs that only like that you've sung before. But some of these songs that we picked was collaborative because my mom hadn't sang a lot of the songs that she did in New Orleans in decades. So she was very curious of why these songs, and Marion had her own reasons too, of just like really bringing back the revival years, like
Mm-hmm.
what are these like even prolific and like legendary, iconic Vietnamese songs like back in the day. And so she had a list. My mom saw the list. My
Mm-hmm.
mom would pick her favorite from the list, add some of her own. It was very collaborative. And so in terms of finding like a playlist, I believe she's saying 7 songs. I could
Mm-hmm.
be wrong. I could be one or two off, but um, we really did try to make sure she found music that she felt connected to and confident about singing. And once we picked those songs, the band got to work, and it was a very hard journey, but it was really fun, and
Mm-hmm.
I think a good challenge for my mom.
And for your mom, I'm curious about how for the rehearsals, like, was it done mostly in person, or did she have to travel to New Orleans, or did they have to travel to where she was living at, or was it done through like online, like the Zoom era, which I know a lot of musicians have also done, which
Hmm.
I don't know how I feel about that because I do
Sure.
find it to be very disconnecting in some kind of way, but
Yeah,
also it also affords more flexibility at the same
totally.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a worry because we were going to fly out before to do like a rehearsal, but things cost. And we basically ended up having just demos for my mom to listen to on Google Drive. So she would sing to the demos and it was in her key and so it was like the band's responsibility to have a lot of stuff ready for my mom. And so my mom just kind of like rehearsed by listening to the Google Drive tracks. And then we got to New Orleans a couple days earlier and she had like a day
Wow.
to practice. It was very quick, but she knew it was more just like, can I vibe with the band?
Yeah.
Can this work? It was, I will say I'm excited for this Chicago show because my mom's done it before. But I think
Yeah.
before New Orleans, it was like, oh, she's never done this before. And
Hmm.
we weren't nervous, but we were just like, whoa, this is going to be, let's just see what happens, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that you chose New Orleans because it is also it's known for its jazz scene,
Hmm.
but also like a lot of the Vietnamese refugees were also living in the Gulf shores prior
Hmm.
to Hurricane Katrina and then the Gulf oil spill like in 2011. And I say
Yeah.
this because I have family members in near Mobile, Alabama. So
Hmm.
so there was a big fishing industry during that time and I think it's kind of interesting to kind of, you know, have in a way honor that community in a way because that was a community that was a fixture and I
Yeah.
think it still is to some extent. I think it's not as
Hmm.
big as it used to be, but because a lot of the Vietnamese community went to like Houston or
Hmm.
Dallas or maybe Atlanta
Hmm.
as as that evolving. from the fishing industry has changed. But yeah, I do think it's quite, interesting to start out. How
Hmm.
did um what I know you were talking about the audience at that time. Like what was the first show like? What did you learn from that particular experience, or what did she also learn from, you know, doing this show in New Orleans?
That people still like seeing live music. I
Hmm.
think I know that, and I think I have my own trauma around touring. But I think like someone to show up to a show and I've never heard of my mom before is very interesting to me. And
Hmm.
I think the buzzwords around the streets were like, oh, she's the Tina Turner of Vietnam. So like
Hmm.
people had some like reference onto what they were walking
Hmm.
into. But I think if someone sees a poster that says Saigon Jazz Revival, it just sounds fun. So
Yeah.
I think my mom just was really humbled by the fact that music brings all types of people together. I think my
Hmm.
mom probably felt very cool to
Hmm.
see different races in the audience because I do think she probably thought, I don't know, that no one really cares about her music
Hmm.
but Vietnamese people or something, which is not a bad thing, but I understand
Hmm.
what she's saying in a way. So kind of just seeing that her music kind of can touch many people was really cool and it gave us a lot of confidence to do another show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And are you also looking at other cities too in after Chicago? Like, are you looking at other potential opportunities to continue this?
I'm personally like unable to kickstart this. I have a personality of wanting to do everything, but I'm also trying to,
Hmm.
do my life as well. And it goes back
Yeah.
to the whole like, legacy thing.
Hmm.
I am as you've noted, I'm working on a documentary on my mom, and it's
Hmm.
something that is really, really, really fun and hard to do.
Hmm.
So I will say Marion has plans I don't even know about for Saigon Jazz Revival. I think
Hmm.
she has other artists. Like I think it's really
Hmm.
cool. She's so passionate
Yeah.
about music in a really refreshing way. We kind of swapped in a way because she was more film and now kind of focusing on music, and I'm kind of doing the opposite, but we're all doing it all. So I would say I have no personally, that sounds really fun.
Hmm.
Personally, if someone was like, listen, here is $1 million for you and your mom to tour the US for a jazz revival, I would be like, okay, sick.
Hmm.
Let's talk about it. Maybe
Hmm.
that's enough money for me. I'm not sure. But but yeah, I think after Chicago would be a really good and important conversation to have to see like how did that go? And
Hmm.
is this worth doing again? I
Hmm.
think there's loose talks about doing one in Vietnam, which would be kind of
Mm.
cool.
Yeah, and I think that there is such a growing I know I went to Vietnam like less than 2 years ago, and I've seen a lot of people of our p age coming back to visit on their
Yeah.
own terms. And I think that
Yeah.
there's such power to reconnecting with the homeland. So I
Hmm.
do think it's very interesting to see um our parents' generation, despite a lot of the traumas that they had faced, to try to reconcile with
Hmm.
a very difficult past. And
Yeah.
and I think that's certainly something that I've, been observing. In doing the documentary with your mom, what have you learned about your relationship with her in terms of your own reconciliation, healing, and things that you actually didn't even know about her that kind of like that started to maybe solve certain puzzles?
I would say, Randy, that no puzzles have been solved, but I find her to be a very complex and beautiful and interesting woman. I think that me getting married this year was interesting. I think there's something about building my own family there that I'm learning between what that looks like with your parents when you kind
Yeah.
of move on, not move on, you know what I mean? You just kind of you leave the house metaphorically speaking, but I'm learning more about my mom's stories. Like she'll tell me some things that she'll say very casually that I'm like, Mom, that is insane that you just said that so casually. And so I think it's only solidifying what I already knew, which is there's a lot of grief coming from Vietnam, and there's also a lot of joy. But I bend towards joy, and I don't know if my mom does, and that's okay. It's our parents. I don't know if we have
Yeah.
another like if we have an optimism that our parents can't have or whatever. I think that's understandable. So yeah, I'm just kind of I'm only furthering the notion that our parents are wild mysteries, and
Mhm.
sometimes they'll give you some trinkets of truth that you can only kind of hold and hopefully be compassionate around. But no puzzles are solved. I think
Mhm.
loving my mom and her love for me
Mhm.
is as potent as it'll ever be. Like it's just so she's like the best person I know. And it's also very hard. It's a hard thing to like learn about your parents, and
Yeah.
they're not people, you just can't. I want so much for my mom to see and learn
Mhm.
and I don't know, accept. And I think she would want the same for me. And we're
Yeah.
just kind of we bump heads a lot if it comes to like, specific issues that we won't need to raise here.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
A lot of us relate to that very,
yeah,
very much.
it feels insane in
Mhm.
that sense. And I feel sad about it, to be honest. And it's
Yeah.
like you have to let it go and just love them the way you can.
Yeah, I think that's certainly something that I'm also, reconciling,
Hmm.
through time. And I think that old habits do die very, very
Yep.
hard, old beliefs.
Yep.
And I wonder about how has your mom been, I mean, you don't have to share it, but also like how has she been, especially with your marriage to your partner? Because I
Hmm.
I always get very fascinated by elders and how they respond to queer relationships. And
Yeah.
I always feel like there's like such a powerful, like I did see a video of her walking you down and I was like, wow,
Hmm.
this is so beautiful to watch. And I
Hmm.
and I love it. I really get so um moved by it because it shows that there is this love and that and that there's this another side to the coin that a lot of Asian folks, especially in our own community, unfortunately struggle
Yeah.
with, in terms of queerness
Yeah.
and relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that I have friends specifically, I mean, I have many friends
Mm,
whose parents didn't show up for them,
mm,
unfortunately. But I also know some like Vietnamese friends who didn't have their mom come, and
mm,
I was kind of very stressed about that.
mm,
And ultimately, my mom has said she's always there for me. She loves
mm,
me. She'll be there for me, and she was. And I think that's true. And I
mm,
think what also can be true too is that she still doesn't really understand queerness. And I think
mm,
that she's still very like perplexed by it. And I don't want to say she's sad about it, but
mm,
she's not doing cartwheels of joy. And I think
mm.
but she's happy for me. But
Yeah.
it's so weird. I don't know. This is probably another podcast episode, but
Or
again, I
maybe a
think
part of your memoir too, as you're
I mean
writing.
it
So,
it
right.
definitely is obviously, yeah. But I think that it was nice to know that she would be there and show up there. And
Yeah.
I knew in my heart that she would never not come, but
Hmm.
I would have been devastated, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? But
Hmm.
she's learning, and again, it's old beliefs die hard. Also, like if any of us lack curiosity or lack the notion that we could be wrong about something, like I just don't know if I feel completely safe around you. And I say
Hmm.
that with
Yeah.
love. Like,
Yeah.
I love my mother. People
Yeah.
know this. Like, whoever's listening, it's like I love my mom, and
Yeah.
I'm writing about this too. Like, it's such a complicated, interesting, intense love I have for her, but it's also like, whoa, like you won't understand. You don't really know me fully. And
Mhm.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. It bums me out. But she
Mhm.
was there and she celebrated me, and I'm really grateful. And, you kind of take what you can.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge step. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you take what you can and,
Hmm.
hopefully that this kind of plants a seed and, help
Yeah.
her understand more. I mean, I know my mom, she doesn't like to talk about it. I mean, she acknowledges it and doesn't, shame me for it, but it's kind of weird, man. I think it's probably because after my grandma passed away, and I think that kind of allowed her to feel at ease because, yeah, I mean, I come from obviously like my mom's side of the family is very Catholic, and I
Hmm.
think a lot of my relatives are aware of it, and I'm, like I like you, I'm also very unapologetically queer
Hmm.
and and to the point where it's like I know it makes people groan a little bit, but I'm like, look, I'm here to normalize it.
Hmm.
And I think that's very important. So I'm really glad that you could share that, of that aspect of your own journey. And, like well, I was very curious about your own music career because I remember when I interviewed you, you were releasing several songs in your EPs, and you were getting a lot of plays and a lot of traction. And some of my favorite songs were "Low," "Anxiety," which I very much relate to. "Feel Some More" is honestly like really one of my favorite
Hmm.
songs. I think I've had that song
Thanks.
on repeat for quite a while, and I think I might have
Thanks.
to bring it back to the playlist now that I'm thinking about it
Yes.
because it is one of those songs I can just really groove to. And
Hmm.
it's also like you do sing from a level of vulnerability, but there's also a sense of like hope, and then there's a sense of like trying to find some level of abundance in that
Hmm.
journey. So I'm curious about where your music, what your relationship with your own music has been like these days.
Yeah, I think that the industry has changed a lot, and
Mhm,
I think that I know that I'm really happy that I started when I did. I think the
mhm,
the
mhm,
rise of Spotify really launched careers, and it really
mhm,
launched mine.
mhm,
And so, I mean, the last time we talked, I was in the height of things, and it
mhm,
was really fun, and I had very lofty goals that I felt very like that were very doable.
mhm,
And I think it was a mixture of expectations not being met and also just maybe I had a minute to think about what it is I really wanted to do. And I think it's cool that even now, I haven't released an EP in a second, but I still
mhm,
have released music and I still
mhm,
get to write songs for shows and
mhm,
movies. And
mhm,
so music's never gone, but it is different. When I was, talking to you
mhm,
last, I was in the
mhm,
studio working
mhm,
towards an EP because I need to release an EP so people can listen to it, so I can go on tour, so I can make money, so I can
mhm,
open for someone big, so I can. And I would be lying to you if I said I didn't want to do that, like
mhm,
ultimately anymore. I crave
mhm,
like performing at like big places.
mhm,
But I think it was really a good thing to kind of look at and reevaluate my time and my energy. And I think I started music later
mhm,
in life at 27, so I wasn't like a dodo head signing everything, but I wasn't perfect with my
mhm,
decisions, and I I right-sized my expectations, I guess maybe 6 years ago, and um I kind of stopped doing the like the strict schedule of like I'm a
mhm,
musician, I'm releasing, I'm touring, but I kind of just was like, let me during COVID I wrote my first script because we weren't doing anything during COVID and I
mhm,
don't know how to write scripts, but I learned how to write scripts. So for me, it was just more like, okay, let's kind of pivot and see what else I can do with what's inside of me. And I wrote some short films and then I've
mhm,
been just kind of doing movie screenwriting ever since. But music is so fun, and for every short that I've made, I've written an original song for, and I like felt happy again. I wrote my first song in the studio like 2 years ago
mhm,
for my film, my first short film, No More Sad Songs, and I was like, oh, this feels really fun
mhm,
to make something without any label or like
mhm,
distributor expecting it from me. So yeah, it is different. I'm surrounded by people who are still doing it, like my friends who are still doing it, and I'm like, that is awesome. And I'm also surrounded by people who are like getting Grammys and and I'm
wow.
like, man, I am around some great people. I am placed here perfectly. I'm very curious of my own career, music career still after 10 years.
Mhm,
I have no idea what the landscape is for anything
yeah.
musical, but yeah, it's just your plans have to change when the climate of the industry changes.
Yeah, no, because nowadays it's like TikTok, Billboard is like kind of
Yeah,
feels obsolete right now.
totally.
Algorithms are it just seems like it's a whole different playbook every
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
And I think you were talking about touring too, and I think like it's one of those ways to get your work out there, but it's also
Hmm.
a very, and I've been reading a lot about what people have experienced in the touring industry. It's very cutthroat. I mean,
Hmm.
venue prices are going up the sky roof.
Hmm.
Merch is way up, and so it's pricing out, unfortunately, a lot of the consumers or the fans, but it also puts a lot of stress on the artists,
Yeah.
especially indie artists that have to travel like by car, by van, and trying to crash at, certain places,
Hmm.
and, having to figure out how to do laundry. And I wonder, like, do you always get fascinated by the idea of touring, or does the idea of like having to do the grind and like figuring out the the day to day and
Mm-hmm.
trying to have the energy to perform in front of an audience, especially if you're opening up and people are just trying to know your work.
hmm Yeah, I mean, I did the grind for a little bit, so I feel like I know what that's like. Like
Mhm.
my then manager drove us in her like Ford Explorer across the US over the
Wow.
ice. Like it was insane and it was so fun and I had a blast. So
Yeah.
that I don't know if I missed that, but I know I can't just jump from grind to like bougie tour. I I haven't put real thought into it, but I am pretty good at organization and I'm
Mhm.
pretty good at I think touring is worth it
Mhm.
still because
Mhm.
I love meeting people on
Mhm.
tour. It's my favorite thing in the world to meet any one fan in like Minneapolis. Like it is the highlight of my life and it has always been the thing that carried me through my music
Mhm.
career, to be honest, meeting those fans in 2017. So
Mhm.
I know I still remember everybody. So it's like that's fun. And I want that. And I still find like new listeners on YouTube
Mhm.
and the internet, and that's really cool to me. So that's sick. I'll take it. But
Mhm.
touring I haven't thought about, but I would be I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, Randy. If someone's like,
Yeah.
"Hey, open up for us," I'm like, maybe. It depends who you are, but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not gonna name names. There was a fellow Asian indie singer that I interviewed like maybe a few years ago,
hmm
and I was asking about touring. She just did not seem like she even wanted to do it. I
hmm
said, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to your show like in Chicago when you're performing." And
hmm
she was like, I said, "Are you excited about anything about touring?" She's like, "I have to perform for 45 minutes." And
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do these songs, and yeah, and I was like, do you have a favorite city? He's like, no, I don't. And I was like, I don't think I get it. Like for some people, it's like they just want to be able to sit home
sure.
and just perform like in the studio and not have to like be.
Just recording artists. Yeah.
Yes, there's certain people, and unfortunately, I wish there was more leverage where like it's financially viable, where you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to tour your butt off.
Sure.
So yeah, and you don't have to give this away. Do you see yourself performing with your mom at any point?
So at the jazz revival show, I sang Saigon with my mom.
Mm.
And so we'll probably do that again.
Wow.
Um, it's fine.
Mhm.
It's fun. It's fine and fun. I'm not the best Vietnamese singer. But yeah, I think people have asked like, like listen, if I was a really big performer and I had like an insane tour like at
Mhm.
stadiums, I would totally have my mom like sing open up for me
Oh, yeah.
and she would be like so down. That sounds fun to me. I think where I'm at in my career, I don't really have any desire to like sing with her.
Mhm.
There's some plans though where I can just share here, I guess, for the public to hear. But I want my mom to sing one of my songs,
Mm.
like because they're originals, and it's very complicated with the Vietnamese industry.
Yes.
I would say the horrible music. The music industry sucks in general, but
Hmm.
like there's like frameworks to it. I think the
Hmm.
Vietnamese industry is really wild to me. It's like the wild, wild west of like
Hmm.
rights and licensings. All
Hmm.
that to say is there's a hope that my mom would cover one of my songs.
Yeah, I would love to see how she would cover a song like
Oh, she would
Anxiety
too.
or Feel Some More. I would love to
Yeah.
see how she would take on the more contemporary songs,
Yeah.
especially from like our generation and younger,
Yeah.
and what that looks like. Because I do think that fascinates me
Me
when
too.
I've seen older people cover or work with younger artists. And
hmm
yeah, and I I'm also wondering about um like working with her and working with the musicians to Saigon Jazz Revival. Um, what ways, or I don't know if you pay attention to what other Vietnamese artists are doing, whether it's like of our age, of the diaspora, like the indie artists, and then maybe like your mom's contemporaries, like, do you pay attention to what they're doing and also how they're trying to grapple with, the music industry in the US or with the Vietnamese industry? I don't know if it's something that you do pay attention to or if your mom pays attention to that, or because I know that you had mentioned that the Vietnamese music industry can be very cutthroat and very restrictive for a lot of artists in terms of rights.
Yeah, I kind of have to say I don't. I
Mhm,
think in terms of I think I've been looking into how the Vietnamese industry was and the songs that come out from the era my mom sang, and I'm doing a
mhm,
lot of digging and archiving and stuff. But today, I ha don't have a great pulse on
mhm,
what's happening, to be honest.
mhm.
I kind of don't have an interest in that. I don't know if that's a bad
Yeah.
thing, but no, yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about mental health through your music,
Hmm.
film, and on social media. What has that journey looked like for you as of late in, being able to be very open about it?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand the role I had as a musician, that people would listen to my music and feel a little bit better. And I think when I found that out, it's why I was so like gung ho about
Mm,
really doing music forever. And obviously I'm doing it, but
mm,
So yeah, I think that mental health
mm,
is like
mhm,
actual wealth. And I
mhm,
think that it's so important to know you're not alone. And it's so important to find your community. And, being, you and I, like being people of color and who are queer, it's like there's so many communities for us. And I think it's important to know that there are people out there that kind of can understand the things that we go through and stuff. So I think mental
mm,
health needs to not be communal because I know it can feel
mm,
isolating, but it is a
mm,
communal thing, and I think it's important to know that. But yeah, I think a big theme for me in terms of mental health is grief. I
mm,
think it is where my mental health comes from currently. I think I have
mm,
anxiety in the sense of like I love to control things and plan things, but I'm moderately healthier than I used to be. But I do think right now I'm in the season of grief of like kind of just losing like people, like maybe literally, but also just losing friendships because
mhm,
of
mhm,
life and beliefs and growing up and becoming yourself. And yeah, I'm experiencing a lot of grief right now personally. So I think like, but I feel a lot of joy in it because I feel very lighter because I'm seeing things for the way they are right now. So I think mental health is like, it's important to be grounded in the reality of your life and know that like for me, my faith is really important to me. Therapy is important to me. Like understanding like who I was made to be is important to me,
mhm,
and I'm so happy to be here. And I think
mhm,
like I need everyone to know that I'm happy they're here too, you know? So
mhm,
how do I do that? Like I can't tell everyone that, but I can try through my music and through my
mhm,
movies. And I
mhm,
keep doing other things because
mhm,
I'm only doing
mhm,
other things because I want to reach more people and I
mhm,
happen to be decent at things. I'm not like
mhm,
the best X, Y, and Z, but I've always been wanting to write a book, and so I'm like, okay, this
mhm.
will reach someone else. Like this gets me jazzed because I want people to feel loved.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you lifting this message and also your own journey because I do think that, someone who has gone through
Hmm.
mental health trials and tribulations,
Hmm.
you learn about it's not therapy is just not an individual thing, it's a communal. Like there is
Hmm.
a sense of connection, there's a sense
Yeah.
of trying to make space for yourself, advocate, having to unlearn a lot of beliefs that do not fit you or aren't that
Yeah.
you're not aligned with. So I think that's always the hardest part is trying to really unwrap that and how
Yeah.
to pivot away from that. And so I do
Yeah.
think that's a very powerful thing to go through. I mean, therapy is beyond just, having a therapist, but also
Right.
being in community spaces and,
Hmm.
being able to do the things that you love in a very healthy way. Um, I am curious, like, do you see yourself taking on different projects or areas that you have yet to explore? Because I know you've been dabbling into like different mediums.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by theater.
Mm,
I don't know, man. I like my favorite movies are like movies that playwrights wrote. So
mm,
I think there's a bubbling of theater right
mm,
now around me anyways. And
mm,
so I do have like, because I like being on stage, right? I like
Hmm.
performing because I like being around people, you
Hmm.
know? So I'm kind of like, huh, what does that mean? How do I do that without having to sing songs at you? So I don't
Hmm.
know what that looks like, but I have thoughts that I'm not ready to put into words because I don't know yet. But I do like, I think performance is interesting, and I'm curious of how it would be as a performer that's not necessarily musical.
Yeah, and you're a Gemini, right? Just like
I
I am.
am.
I could
You
see
get
that
it.
because I totally get it because you dabble and not to say that I think one of the things that we're known as being commitment averse, and sometimes I do cringe at that. Like some of it's true, but some of it's like, look, it has to align. Like
Hmm.
if it's not keeping me stimulated, then
Yeah.
I can't go forward
Yeah.
with it. So I I do cringe at people saying that, well, you can't commit to anything. Like you're just
They
very
say that to
flighty.
you?
Yeah, I get told
Like,
that. I get told that.
really?
It's like not that they're completely wrong on it, but they're
Sure.
also like, I'd like to challenge that because,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that we are creatives. I think that we do like to explore and interrogate ideas
Hmm.
and belief systems. And,
Yeah,
I think that curiosity is a big part of
it
what
is.
Geminis do.
Hmm.
As we start to wrap up, I want to say, I hope that people listening get your tickets to the Saigon Jazz Revival at Live Bash in Chicago on Saturday, August 29th. Check out the VAI Instagram site. I'm gonna
Yes.
put the links out there, and
Amazing.
and I think this is gonna be a great intimate
Hmm.
show, and
Hmm.
it's gonna showcase so many different musicians along with your mom and her
Hmm.
legacy, and being able to give her flowers while she's
Yeah.
still there because I do obviously think about how do we honor the people still
Yeah.
here and making sure that they're part of our history and that we don't, that we honor
Yeah.
it in a way that keeps them permanent. So I hope that I hope people get tickets to the show, get them now. And also, I hope that people get to stream your music, especially Feel Somewhere. I really want people to stream the hell out of that
Me
song because
too.
it
Me
is
too. Please
it is,
do.
please
It's a good
stream the
song.
hell. It is an
I actually
amazing,
like that song, so it's good.
it is an amazing song. I don't think there's a song that had a chokehold on me for like a couple of years than this song.
I
And
love that.
I don't say that to like, kiss butt, but it's like, hey, if I love it, I really
I
love
appreciate
it.
that.
So but anything else that you also want to add in the anticipation of the Saigon Jazz Revival?
No, I mean, only just that I love what you're doing and I love the stories that you seek out and platform. I think it's really beautiful to see you do this. And I know it hasn't been easy, but it's been
Hmm.
really cool to see you really pour into people's lives. And I do
Hmm.
feel like it's very important. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, and thank you for being on my show. And also, it's great. I'm glad that we finally had this conversation nearly 6 years later and
Hmm.
seeing the different evolutions that have happened since then. So yeah, all the best to you. I look forward to seeing you in Chicago. And I hope
Yay.
I know this is gonna be an amazing, memorable show for
I'm
the
excited.
community. So
I'm
all the
excited. Thanks,
best.
Randy. Thank you.
Mhm.